The Assembly will come to order. The Chief Clerk will call the roll.
Assemblywoman Anderson, Assemblywoman Benitez-Thompson, Assemblywoman Bilber Axelrod, Assemblywoman Black, Assemblywoman Brown May, Assemblywoman Carlton, Assemblywoman Cohen, Assemblywoman Considine, Assemblywoman Dickman, Assemblywoman Duran, Assemblyman Ellison, Assemblyman Flores, Assemblywoman Gonzalez, Assemblywoman Gorlow, Assemblyman Hafen, Assemblywoman Hanson, Assemblywoman Hardy, Assemblywoman Howdigi, Assemblywoman Kasama, Assemblywoman Krasner, Assemblyman Levitt, Assemblywoman Martinez, Assemblywoman Marzola, Assemblyman Matthews, Assemblyman MacArthur, Assemblywoman Brittany Miller, Assemblyman C.H. Miller, Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno, Assemblywoman Wynn, Assemblyman O'Neill, Assemblyman Orentlicker, Assemblywoman Peters, Assemblyman Roberts, Assemblywoman Summers Armstrong, Assemblywoman Thomas, Assemblywoman Titus, Assemblywoman Tolles, Assemblywoman Torres, Assemblyman Watts, Assemblyman Wheeler, Assemblyman Yeager, Assemblyman Levitt, Assemblyman O'Neill, Speaker Frierson.
Assemblywoman Benitez-Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May the record reflect that Assemblyman O'Neill is absent excused. We have 41 members present.
The record shall so reflect there are 41 members present. There is a quorum. The Assembly will please rise for the prayer by Rabbi Benjamin Zober of Temple Sinai in Reno.
In this land of the setting sun, the day is short, and the work is plentiful. Yet the reward is great, blessings of freedom, domestic tranquility, and a more perfect government. May it be your will that justice well up as waters and righteousness as a mighty stream. May this body and this state all turn in love, see corruption and hatred give way to integrity and goodness, end enslavement of the mind and the blindness of idolatry. May all, created in your image, become one in spirit and one in friendship, forever united in service. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may it be so. Amen.
Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance. Order business 2, reading and approval of the journal.
Carson City, Thursday,
Mr.
April
Speaker.
15.
Assemblywoman Benitez-Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to dispense with further reading of the journal and authorize the Speaker and Chief Clerk to make necessary corrections or additions.
You heard the motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Go to order business 4, reports to standing committee.
Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Health and Human Services, to which will refer to Assembly Bills 181-256, has had the same under consideration and begs leave to report the same back with the recommendation and do pass as amended. And your Committee on Health and Human Services, to which will refer to Assembly Bill 192, has had the same under consideration and begs leave to report the same back with the recommendation and do pass as amended. Rochelle T. Wynn, Chair. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Judiciary, to which will refer to Assembly Bills 42, 58, 132, 141, 201, 219, 406, 414, has had the same under consideration and begs leave to report the same back with the recommendation and do pass as amended. Steve Yeager, Chair. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Legislative Operations and Elections, to which will refer to Assembly Bills 126, 129, has had the same under consideration and begs leave to report the same back with the recommendation and do pass as amended. Brittany Miller, Chair. Mr. Speaker, Committee on Natural Resources, to which was referred to Assembly Bill 148, has had the same under consideration and begs leave to report the same back with the recommendation and do pass as amended. Howard Webb's Chair. Mr. Speaker, Committee on Revenue, to which was referred to Assembly Bill 20, has had the same under consideration and begs leave to report the same back with the recommendation and do pass as amended. And your Committee on Revenue, to which was referred to Assembly Bill 370, has had the same under consideration and begs leave to report the same back with the recommendation and do pass as amended. Leslie E. Cullen, Chair.
Order business 7, messages from the Senate.
Senate Chamber, Carson City, April 15, 2021. To the Honorable the Assembly, I have the honor to inform the Honorable Body that the Senate on this day passed as amended Senate Bills 1966, 71, 95, 108, 109, 156, 247, 344, 371, and I have the honor to inform the Honorable Body that the Senate on this day adopted Senate Concurrent Resolution Number 5. Sherry Rodriguez, Assistant Secretary of the Senate.
We go to order business 8, motions, resolutions, and notices.
Senate Concurrent Resolution Number 5, introduced by Senator Spearman, urging certain actions to address the public health crisis caused by systemic racism and greatly magnified by the COVID-19 pandemic in Nevada.
Assemblywoman Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to refer SCR 5 to your Committee on Legislative Operations and Elections.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Good. Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Under Order Business 8, I move to withdraw Senate Bill 141 from your Committee on Government Affairs.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to refer Senate Bill 141 to your Committee on Commerce and Labor.
You heard the motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Off the press as I can do this now. I move that Assembly Bill, under Order Business 8.
Order Business 8.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that Assembly Bill 143 be taken off the Chief Clerk's desk and be placed onto general file.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor, You've heard the motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Is that all, the eight you have? All right. We'll go to Order Business 9, introduction, first reading, and reference of bills.
Senate Bill 19, introduced by the Committee on Judiciary and Acquisition Records of Criminal History, establishing provisions authorizing certain entities to obtain information relating to records of criminal history of certain persons responsible for the safety and well-being of children, elderly persons, or persons with disabilities, providing fee, and providing other matters properly named thereto. Senate Bill 66, introduced by the Committee on Education and Acquisition Education, prescribing the duties of the Office of Science, Innovation, and Technology relating to access to the Internet and telecommunications technology for pupils, requiring the Board of Trustees of each school district and the state public charter school authority to report certain information to the office, requiring the office to prepare and submit an annual report, and providing other matters properly named thereto. Senate Bill 71, introduced by the Committee on Judiciary and Acting to Unclaimed Property, revising provisions of the Uniform Unclaimed Property Act and providing other matters properly named thereto. Senate Bill 95, introduced by Senator Ornshaw and Acting to Business Entities, revising provisions relating to service of process and management persons, making various changes to definitions relating to corporations, authorizing incorporation to include a federal forum selection clause in its articles of incorporation or bylaws, revising provisions relating to the breach of a fiduciary duty by a director or officer of a corporation, making various changes relating to meetings of stockholders held by means of remote communication, revising provisions relating to voting agreements of stockholders, revising provisions relating to notice of meetings of stockholders, revising provisions relating to insolvent corporations, revising provisions relating to discretionary indemnification of directors, officers, employees, and agents of corporations, providing an exception to the requirement that a corporation issue a certificate of membership, establishing and revising provisions relating to distributions made by limited liability companies, revising provisions relating to the form of contributions to capital of members of a limited liability company or series, making various changes relating to the standard of voting for actions taken by corporations, limited partnerships, and limited liability companies, revising provisions relating to dissenters' rights, and providing other matters properly named thereto. Senate Bill 108, introduced by the Committee on Judiciary and Acting Juvenile Justice, requiring any person who, during the scope of his or her employment, has regular and routine contact with juveniles who are involved in the juvenile justice system in the state to complete periodic training relating to implicit bias and cultural competency, requiring the Division of Child and Family Services of the Department of Health and Human Services to adopt regulations concerning such training, authorizing the Nevada Supreme Court to adopt additional court rules concerning such training for the magistrate, judge, master, or employee in the juvenile court system who regularly and routinely comes into contact with such juveniles, and providing other matters properly named thereto. Senate Bill 109, introduced by Senator Spearman, and acting on governmental agencies, requiring governmental agencies to request from certain persons information related to sexual orientation and gender identity or expression, providing with certain exceptions that such information is confidential, requiring a governmental agency to annually report certain information related to sexual orientation and gender identity or expression to the Director of the Legislative Council Bureau, and providing other matters properly named thereto. Senate Bill 156, introduced by the Committee on Health and Human Services, enacting mental health, revising certain requirements for an endorsement as a crisis stabilization center and providing other matters properly named thereto. Senate Bill 247, introduced by Senator Don Darrell Loop, enacting to apprenticeships, revising the mandatory criteria for approval and registration under certain circumstances, revising the requirements for the approval and registration of a proposed program, and providing other matters properly named thereto. Senate Bill 344, introduced by Senator Ornshaw, enacting to animals, enacting provisions relating to the importation, possession, sale, transfer, and breeding of dangerous wild animals, and providing other matters properly named thereto. Senate Bill 371, introduced by the Committee on Growth and Infrastructure, enacting to motor vehicles, revising provisions governing the pilot program that the Department of Motor Vehicles is required to conduct to gather data relating to certain motor vehicles in the state, and providing other matters properly named thereto.
Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the Senate bills as shown on the board and shown on Senate bill introductions dated April 16, 2021 be referred to their committees. All members have a copy of this on their desk.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Ready to go to order business 12? You want to do order business 11 then?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yes, I think we're ready to do order business 11, then order business.
All right, let's go to order business 11, second reading and amendments.
Assembly Bill 20, introduced by the Committee on Revenue, enacting taxation, revising the types of film and other productions for which a production company may apply for certain transferable tax credits, revising provisions governing the eligibility of a production company for certain transferable tax credits, revising provisions governing the calculation of the amount of transferable tax credits issued to a qualified production company, expanding the circumstances under which the Office of Economic Development is authorized to withhold transferable tax credits, and providing other amendments properly named thereto. The people of the state of Nevada represented in Senate and Assembly to enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 6, end of Section 6, end of bill.
All right, amendments to section 1 of the bill as a whole.
I have Amendment 255 proposed by the Assembly Committee on Revenue.
Assemblywoman Cohen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to adopt Amendment Number 255 to Assembly Bill 20.
Assemblywoman Cohen has moved that the Assembly adopt Amendment 255 to Assembly Bill 20. Remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Amendment Number 255 to Assembly Bill 20 makes the following changes to the bill. 1, a qualified production for the purposes of the film tax credits shall not be deemed a sporting event for the sole reason that it features athletes or relates to sports. And 2, qualified productions must enter into a written agreement with the Office of Economic Development to include a logo of the state provided by the office in the end credits of the production, indicating that it was filmed or produced in Nevada, or if the production does not have end credits, another acknowledgement in the final version indicating that the production was filmed or produced in Nevada.
Any further remarks? All those in favor of the Assembly adopting Amendment 255 to Assembly Bill 20 signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. The amendment is adopted. Any further amendments to the bill?
There are none.
Bills ordered general file.
Assembly Bill 42, introduced by the Committee on Judiciary, an act relating to crimes requiring certain batteries which constitute domestic violence to be charged with certain felonies and gross misdemeanors, expanding the courts that are required to conduct a jury trial under certain circumstances, revising various provisions relating to jury trials, authorizing the use of sound recording equipment under certain circumstances, making various changes regarding the jurisdiction of municipal courts, revising provisions governing the selection of jurors, establishing the right to a jury trial under certain circumstances, prohibiting a person convicted of a battery which constitutes domestic violence or the same or similar conduct in another state from owning or having in his possession or under his or her custody or control any firearm, providing penalty and providing other matters properly named thereto. The people of the state of Nevada represented in Senate and Assembly to enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 18, end of Section 18, end of bill.
All right, amendments to section 1 of the bill as a whole.
I have Amendment 137 proposed by the Assembly Committee on Judiciary.
Assemblyman Yeager.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the Assembly adopt Amendment 137 to Assembly Bill 42.
Assemblyman Yeager has moved that the Assembly adopt Amendment 137 to Assembly Bill 42. Remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The amendment provides the minimum number of jurors as 12, but the parties prior to jury selection may stipulate any number less than 12, but not less than 6. The amendment adds the chief marshal to various selection regarding the jury deliberation room and jury summons process. It revises the definition of the crime of battery, which constitutes domestic violence. And finally, it authorizes the justice of the peace to direct jury summonses countywide.
Any further remarks? All those in favor of the Assembly adopting Amendment 137 to Assembly Bill 42 signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. The amendment is adopted. Any further amendments to the bill?
There are none.
Bills ordered general file.
Assembly Bill 58, introduced by the Committee on Judiciary, an act relating to the Attorney General, authorizing the Attorney General to file a civil action to eliminate certain patterns or practices that deprive persons of certain rights, privileges, or immunities, requiring a law enforcement agency to provide notice to the Attorney General if a peace officer uses physical force that results in substantial bodily harm, 2, or the death of another person, providing penalty and providing other matters properly relating thereto, the people of the state of Nevada, represented in the Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 4, end of Section 4, end of bill.
Any amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
I have Amendment 78, proposed by the Assembly Committee on
Assemblyman Yeager.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the Assembly adopt Amendment 78 to Assembly Bill 58.
Assemblyman Yeager has moved the Assembly adopt Amendment 78 to Assembly Bill 58. Remarks?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Amendment 78 provides that the state of Nevada governmental authority shall not engage in a pattern or practice that deprives people of their rights, privileges, or immunities, provides that a governmental authority be given up to 30 days to respond to any allegation, requires that the Attorney General participate in any federal pattern or practice investigations of the Attorney General. It also provides that at the conclusion of the investigation, the Attorney General must issue a report, and finally, it deletes Sections 2 and 3 of the bill.
Any further remarks? All those in favor of the Assembly adopting Amendment 78 to Assembly Bill 58 signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Amendments adopted. Any further amendments to the bill?
There are none.
Bill's order general file.
Assembly Bill 126, introduced by Assemblyman Frierson et al., an act relating to elections, providing for a presidential preference primary election, setting forth requirements and procedures for holding a presidential preference primary election, and providing other matters properly relating thereto. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in the Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 53, end of Section 53, end of bill.
All right, amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole.
I have Amendment 278, proposed by the Assembly Committee on Legislative Operations and Elections.
Assemblywoman Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to adopt Amendment 278 to Assembly Bill 126.
Assemblywoman Miller has moved that the Assembly adopt Amendment 278 to Assembly Bill 126. Remarks?
Amendment 278 revises the date for the presidential preference primary to be the first Tuesday in February. It revises the candidate filing period to be between October 1st and October 15th of the year prior to the presidential preference primary election for persons wishing to appear on the presidential preference primary ballot. It deletes the provisions in the bill authorizing the Secretary of State to set an earlier date. It establishes the period for filing a declaration of candidacy for all candidates except for candidates in a presidential preference primary to begin on the last Monday in February of the election year and ending on the third Friday after the last Monday in February, and makes conforming changes concerning similar filing dates for minor political candidates, independent candidates, and candidates in a city election.
Any further remarks? All those in favor of the Assembly adopt Amendment 278 to Assembly Bill 126 signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Amendments adopted. Any further amendments to the bill?
There are none.
Bill's order general file.
Assembly Bill 129, introduced by Assemblyman Roberts, an act relating to elections, revising the thresholds for a committee for political action to open and maintain a separate account in a financial institution and report contributions and expenditures, requiring the committee for political action to report the balance in its bank account at the end of the reporting period and providing other matters properly relating thereto. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 14, end of Section 14, end of bill.
On amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole.
I have Amendment 275, proposed by the Assembly Committee on Legislative Operations and Elections.
Assemblywoman Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to adopt Amendment 275 to Assembly Bill 129.
Assemblywoman Miller has moved that the Assembly adopt Amendment 275 to Assembly Bill 129. Remarks?
First, the bill is Amendment 275 first amends the bill to increase the thresholds for Political Action Committee, or PACs, reporting requirements for contributions to $1,000 overall. Those reporting requirements for contributions are set at individual contributions exceeding $1,000, contributions received from one contributor exceeding $1,000, and the total of all contributions received, which are $1,000 or less. Second, the amendment restores the $1,000 reporting threshold for contributions to PACs involved in ballot question advocacy and is already specified in existing law.
Any further remarks? All those in favor of the Assembly adopting Amendment 275 to Assembly Bill 129 signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Amendments adopted. Any further amendments to the bill?
There are none.
Bill's order general file.
Assembly Bill 132, introduced by Assemblyman Flores et al., Senator Doniati, an act relating to juvenile justice requiring the electronic recording of an interrogation of a child under certain circumstances, requiring a child to be represented by an attorney under certain circumstances, requiring a juvenile court to presume a child is indigent for the purpose of appointing an attorney to represent the child, directing the Juvenile Justice Oversight Commission to review and study the effects of certain provisions relating to juvenile justice and providing other matters properly relating thereto. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 5, end of Section 5, end of bill.
On the amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole.
I have Amendment 314, proposed by the Assembly Committee on Judiciary.
Assemblyman Yeager.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the Assembly adopt Amendment 314 to Assembly Bill 132.
Assemblyman Yeager's moved. The Assembly adopt Amendment 314 to Assembly Bill 132. Remarks?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Amendment 314 deletes the language in the bill and replaces it with certain disclosures a peace officer or probation officer must make to a child concerning his or her rights before initiating a custodial interrogation.
Any further remarks? All those in favor of the Assembly adopt Amendment 314 to Assembly Bill 132, signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Amendments adopted. Any further amendments to the bill?
There are none.
Bills ordered general fund.
Assembly Bill 141, introduced by Assemblyman Watts, an act relating to evictions, increasing the length of notice required before certain tenants may be evicted without cause, requiring the automatic sealing of records for evictions relating to defaults in the payment of rent which occurred during the COVID-19 emergency, and providing other matters properly thereto. The People's Standard Data represented in Senate and Assembly to enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 4, end of Section 4, end of bill.
Any amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
Amendment 315, proposed by the Assembly Committee on Judiciary.
Assemblyman Yeager.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the Assembly adopt Amendment 315 to Assembly Bill 141.
Assemblyman Yeager's moved. The Assembly adopt Amendment 315 to Assembly Bill 141. Remarks?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Amendment 315 deletes Section 1 of the bill, and it extends sealing the records of summary evictions for non-payment of rent that occurred during the COVID-19 emergency.
Any further remarks? All those in favor of the Assembly adopt Amendment 315 to Assembly Bill 141, signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Amendments adopted. Any further amendments to the bill?
There are none.
Bills ordered general file.
Assembly Bill 148, introduced by Assemblyman Peters et al., an act relating to mining, prohibiting certain persons from obtaining a permit to engage in an exploration project or mining operation, and providing other matters properly thereto. The People's State of Nevada represented in Senate and Assembly to enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 2, end of Section 2, end of bill.
Any amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
Amendment 235, proposed by the Assembly Committee on Natural Resources.
Assemblyman Watts.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the adoption of Amendment 235 to Assembly Bill 148.
Assemblyman Watts has moved. The Assembly adopt Amendment 235 to Assembly Bill 148. Remarks?
Thank you. The amendment revises the application requirements for obtaining a permit to engage in an exploration project or mining operation and changes the effective date.
Any further remarks? All those in favor of the Assembly adopting Amendment 235 to Assembly Bill 148, signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Amendments adopted. Any further amendments to the bill?
There are none.
Bills ordered general file.
Assembly Bill 181, introduced by Assemblyman Peters, an act relating to mental health, providing for the reporting of certain information by certain health-related facilities relating to suicide, requiring certain insurers and other organizations providing health coverage to adhere to certain provisions of federal law, requiring certain insurers and other organizations providing health coverage to submit a report demonstrating mental health parity and addiction equity compliance, and providing other matters properly thereto. The People's State of Nevada represented in Senate and Assembly to enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 11, end of Section 11, end of bill.
Any amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
Amendment 455, proposed by the Assembly Committee on Health and Human Services.
Assemblywoman Nguyen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to adopt Amendment 455 to Assembly Bill 181.
Assemblywoman Nguyen has moved. The Assembly adopt Amendment 455 to Assembly Bill 181. Remarks?
Yes, this amendment requires healthcare providers to provide certain information about suicide to the chief medical officer using the same procedures that are currently used for other communicable diseases and drug overdoses. It also requires the chief medical officer to annually submit a report to the Patient Protection Commission.
Any further remarks? All those in favor of the Assembly adopting Amendment 455 to Assembly Bill 181, signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Amendments adopted. Any further amendments to the bill?
There are none.
Bills ordered general file.
Assembly Bill 192, introduced by the Committee on Health and Human Services, an act relating to public health, requiring under certain exceptions the testing of pregnant women for certain sexually transmitted infections, revising provisions concerning the testing of pregnant women for syphilis, revising penalties for failure to comply with provisions concerning testing of pregnant women for sexually transmitted infections, providing a civil penalty, and providing other matters properly thereto. The People's State of Nevada represented in Senate and Assembly to enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 4, end of Section 4, end of bill.
Any amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
Amendment number 63, proposed by the Assembly Committee on Health and Human Services.
Assemblywoman Nguyen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to adopt Amendment 63 to Assembly Bill 192.
Assemblywoman Nguyen has moved. The Assembly adopt Amendment 63 to Assembly Bill 192. Remarks?
Yes, Amendment 63 replaces references to a laboratory approved by the State Board of Health with a laboratory license pursuant to Chapter 652 of the NRS. It also allows a woman to object to testing and treatment for any reason, and revises a list of medical facilities to which the requirements of this bill apply.
Any further remarks? All those in favor of the Assembly adopt Amendment 63 to Assembly Bill 192, signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. The amendment is adopted. Any further amendments to the bill?
There are none.
Bills ordered in general file.
Assembly Bill 201, introduced by Assemblyman Gonzalez et al., Senators Doñate et al., an act relating criminal procedure requiring each office of a prosecuting attorney to maintain certain records relating to informants, requiring the prosecuting attorney to make certain disclosures to the defense relating to informants, requiring a court to instruct jurors to consider certain information relating to informants, requiring the victim of a crime perpetrated by an informant to be informed of any leniency provided to the informant in exchange for his or her testimony or information, and providing other matters properly relating thereto. The people's state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 8, end of Section 8, end of bill.
Any amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
Amendment 317, proposed by the Assembly Committee on Judiciary.
Assemblyman Yeager.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the Assembly adopt Amendment 317 to Assembly Bill 201.
Assemblyman Yeager has moved that the Assembly adopt Amendment 317 to Assembly Bill 201. Remarks?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Amendment 317 adds the definition of cooperation agreement. It provides that the prosecuting attorney must disclose certain information or material to the defense as soon as possible, but not later than 30 days before the hearing or trial. It requires the court to instruct the jury to consider certain information in assessing the credibility of an informant. And finally, it deletes Section 7 of the bill.
Any further remarks? All those in favor of the Assembly adopting Amendment 317 to Assembly Bill 201 signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Amendments adopted. Any further amendments to the bill?
There are none.
Bills ordered in general file.
Assembly Bill 219, introduced by Assemblyman Yeager et al., an act relating to criminal justice authorizing the sealing of criminal records after a pardon, requiring the sealing of criminal records under certain circumstances, authorizing the appeal of certain petitions to seal criminal records, and providing other matters properly relating thereto. The people's state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 7, end of Section 7, end of bill.
Any amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
I have Amendment 142, proposed by the Assembly Committee on Judiciary.
Assemblyman Yeager.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the Assembly adopt Amendment 142 to Assembly Bill 219.
Assemblyman Yeager has moved that the Assembly adopt Amendment 142 to Assembly Bill 219. Remarks?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Amendment 142 amends the bill to clarify that nothing in the bill prohibits prosecuting attorneys from stipulating to the sealing of records. It provides that a person whose petition is denied may file an appeal. And finally, it adds sponsors to the bill.
Any further remarks? All those in favor of the Assembly adopting Amendment 142 to Assembly Bill 219 signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. The amendment is adopted. Any further amendments to the bill?
There are none.
Bills ordered in general file.
Assembly Bill 256, introduced by Assemblyman Summers Armstrong et al., an act relating to Medicaid, requiring the state plan for Medicaid to provide coverage of doula services to the extent authorized by federal law, requiring the Department of Health and Human Services to apply for a waiver or state plan amendment to receive federal funding for coverage of doula services, requiring any person who desires to provide doula services to a recipient of Medicaid to register with the Division of Healthcare Financing and Policy of the Department, requiring a registered doula to report the abuse of certain persons, and providing other matters properly relating thereto. The people's state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 5, end of Section 5, end of bill.
Any amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
I have Amendment 208, proposed by the Assembly Committee on Health and Human Services.
Assemblywoman Wynn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to adopt Amendment 208 to Assembly Bill 256.
Assemblywoman Wynn's moved that the Assembly adopt Amendment 208 to Assembly Bill 256. Remarks?
Yes, this amendment requires persons who wish to receive Medicaid reimbursement for doula services to enroll in Medicaid instead of register as a doula. It also removes the fee for registration as a doula.
Any further remarks? All those in favor of the Assembly adopting Amendment 208 to Assembly Bill 256 signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Motion carries. Amendments adopted. Any further amendments to the bill?
There are none.
Bills ordered in general file.
Assembly Bill 370, introduced by Assemblywoman Dickman, an act relating to taxation, revising provisions governing the use of certain revenue from the tax on liquor, and providing other matters properly relating thereto. The people's state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 3, end of Section 3, end of bill.
Any amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
I have Amendment 397, proposed by the Assembly Committee on Revenue.
Assemblywoman Cohen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to adopt Amendment Number 397 to Assembly Bill 20.
Assemblywoman Cohen's moved that the Assembly adopt Amendment 397 to Assembly Bill 370. Remarks?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Amendment Number 397 to Assembly, I'm reading the wrong bill. Oh, no, sorry, the right one, sorry. Amendment Number 397 to Assembly Bill 20 makes the following changes to the bill. Number 1, the additional distribution of the liquor tax to the tax on liquor program account is changed from 15% to the proceeds dedicated to the state general fund to the first $200,000 of the tax collected in each biennium. And 2, the use of the proceeds of the tax is changed to be used to provide recovery support services for persons with alcohol or other substance abuse disorders.
Any further remarks? All those in favor of the Assembly adopting Amendment 397 to Assembly Bill 370 signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Amendment is adopted. Any further amendments to the bill?
There are none.
Bills ordered to general file.
Assembly Bill 406, introduced by the Committee on Judiciary, enacting child support, providing for the withholding of gambling winnings of an obligor to pay the arrears in child support owed by the obligor, requiring the Division of Welfare and Supportive Services of the Department of Health and Human Services to adopt regulations to provide for such withholding of gambling winnings and providing other matters properly thereto. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 3, end of Section 3, end of bill.
Are there amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
I have Amendment 326, proposed by the Assembly Committee on Judiciary.
Assemblyman Yeager.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the Assembly adopt Amendment 326 to Assembly Bill 406.
Assemblyman Yeager has moved that the Assembly adopt Amendment 326 to Assembly Bill 406. Remarks?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Amendment 326 deletes Section 1 of the bill and any references to it in the bill, and it also maintains the definition of gambling winnings.
Any further remarks? All those in favor of the Assembly adopt Amendment 326 to Assembly Bill 406, signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Amendment is adopted. Any further amendments to the bill?
There are none.
Bills ordered to general file.
Assembly Bill 414, introduced by Assemblyman O'Neill, enacting to real property, revising the exemption from real property transfer taxes for the conveyance of real property under a deed, which becomes effective upon the death of the grantor, revising provisions governing the enforcement of claims against real property transferred pursuant to a deed upon death, and providing other matters properly laid thereto. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 6, end of Section 6, end of bill.
Are there amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
I have Amendment 327, proposed by the Assembly Committee on Judiciary.
Assemblyman Yeager.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the Assembly adopt Amendment 327 to Assembly Bill 414.
Assemblyman Yeager has moved that the Assembly adopt Amendment 327 to Assembly Bill 414. Remarks?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Amendment 327 provides that after the death of a grantor, a copy of the notice must be mailed to the grantor's personal representative and to the Department of Health and Human Services. It allows the Department of Health and Human Services to secure future recovery of benefits, changes a must to a may concerning title companies, and provides certain rights and protections to a person dealing with the beneficiary of a deed upon death.
Any further remarks? All those in favor of the Assembly adopt Amendment 327 to Assembly Bill 414, signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Amendment is adopted. Any further amendments to the bill?
There are none.
Bills ordered to general file. Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Order business 1.
Order business 1.
Sorry. May the record reflect that Assemblywoman Kasama is absent excused.
Record shall so reflect. I think we have some order business 8s. Assemblywoman Carlton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Under order business number 8.
Order business 8.
Currently under, I would like to refer Assembly Bill 126, 192, 219, 256, and AB 370, currently reported on second reading to your Committee on Ways and Means.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We will now go to order business 12, general file and third reading.
Assembly Bill 54, introduced by the Committee on Growth and Infrastructure, enacting to traffic safety, creating the Advisory Committee on Traffic Safety within the Department of Transportation, requiring the Advisory Committee to review, study, and make recommendations regarding certain issues relating to traffic safety in the state, and to prepare an annual report of its activities and providing other matters properly thereto. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 3, end of Section 3, end of bill.
Are there amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Remarks. Assemblywoman Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Assemblyman
It's
Miller.
Assemblyman Miller. Assembly Bill 54 creates the Advisory Committee on Traffic Safety within the Department of Transportation to review, study, and make recommendations on evidence-based practices for preventing and reducing deaths and injuries related to motor vehicle crashes, data on motor vehicle crashes resulting in death or serious bodily injury, police's intended to reduce or prevent deaths and injuries related to motor vehicle crashes, and other submitted matters. This bill authorizes the committee to establish working groups, task forces, and similar entities as necessary, and requires the committee to submit an annual report. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Any further remarks? There being none, Chief Clerk will open the roll. Oh, the board's not showing it. Anyone wishing to change their vote? There are 36 ayes, 4 nays, 2 absent. Excused. Bill having seen the constitutional majority, declare pass. Order transmitted to the Senate.
Assembly Bill 67, introduced by the Committee on Education, an act relating to education, revising provisions relating to the suspension, expulsion, or permanent expulsion of a pupil from public school, charter school, or university school for profoundly gifted pupils in certain circumstances, providing that certain hearings and proceedings relating to suspending, expelling, or permanently expelling a pupil are not subject to the open meeting law, and providing other matters properly thereto. The people's state of Nevada represented in Senate and Assembly to enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 29, end of Section 29, end of bill.
Any members to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Remarks, Assemblywoman Nguyen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Assembly Bill 67 revises provisions related to the discipline of a pupil from a public school, charter school, or university school for profoundly gifted pupils. Specifically, the bill revises the categories of discipline that may be used to discipline a student to include suspension, significant suspension, expulsion, and permanent expulsion. A person with a disability may be suspended, expelled, or permanently expelled under certain circumstances in compliance with federal law. Additionally, only significant suspensions can be considered when determining if a pupil should be deemed a habitual disciplinary problem. Additionally, finally, Assembly Bill 67 provides that the open meeting law does not apply to certain disciplinary hearings and proceedings with the children at said schools.
Any further remarks? There being none, Chief Clerk will open the roll. Anyone wishing to change their vote? There are 40 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent. Excused. Bill having received the constitutional majority, declare pass. Order transmitted to the Senate.
Assembly Bill 105, introduced by Assemblyman Roberts et al., Senators Hammond et al., an act relating to interscholastic activities requiring any board form to govern the Nevada Interscholastic Activities Association to include at least 3 members who are parents or guardians of pupils who participate in a sanctioned sport, requiring any advisory board to a governing board to include at least 3 members who are pupils currently participating in a sanctioned sport, establishing certain requirements relating to the residency in terms of such members who are parents, guardians, or pupils, and providing other matters properly thereto. The people's state of Nevada represented in Senate and Assembly to enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 2, end of Section 2, end of bill.
Any members to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Remarks, Assemblyman Flores.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Assembly Bill 105 requires that any board formed to govern the Nevada Interscholastic Activities Association include 3 members who are parents or guardians of pupils participating in sanctioned sports. The bill also requires that any advisory board to a governing board include 3 members who are pupils participating in sanctioned sports.
Any further remarks? There being none, Chief Clerk will open the roll. Anyone wishing to change their vote? There are 40 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent. Excused. Bill having received the constitutional majority, declare pass. Order transmitted to the Senate.
Assembly Bill 109, introduced by the Committee on Education, an act relating to education, revising requirements for teachers who provide instruction at a charter school and providing other matters properly thereto. The people's state of Nevada represented in Senate and Assembly do enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 9, end of Section 9, end of bill.
Are there members to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Remarks, Assemblywoman Bilbray Axelrod.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Assembly Bill 109 requires that at least 80% of all teachers who provide instruction in a charter school hold a license or endorsement to teach in Nevada. Additionally, any teacher providing instruction in a core academic subject, English as a second language, or special education must be licensed to teach in Nevada. Non-licensed instructors must meet certain requirements to be authorized to provide instruction. This bill also provides that teachers employed to a charter school on or before July 1st, 2021, who does not have a license to teach may continue to teach at a charter without a license till July 1st, 2026.
Further remarks, Assemblywoman Black.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in opposition to Assembly Bill 109, Order of Business 15.
Thank you. Order of Business 15.
Thank you. As originally introduced, the bill was horrible. As amended, it's merely terrible. The purpose of this bill is to help teachers' unions, not help our kids. It seeks to hamstring public charter schools by restricting who they may hire as classroom teachers. Such bureaucratic interference in school management is one of the reasons our traditional public schools perform so badly, and why so many parents choose the innovative charter school option in the first place. And choose is the important word here. No one is forcing parents to put their kids in charter schools. Parents who choose charter schools for their children are fully aware of their operation and how different it is from our traditional union-run public schools. And the inconvenient truth here is that there's waiting lists to get into a number of them. Instead of trying to force charter schools to operate more like so many of our failing traditional public schools, we should be trying to force our failing traditional public schools to operate more like charter schools. And make no mistake, simply pumping more money into our failing traditional public schools is not the answer. If a car has a blown engine, giving it an expensive new paint job isn't going to fix the problem. Charter schools work, and when something works, don't fix it. I urge my colleagues to oppose this bill and instead focus on real institutional changes to our traditional public schools rather than simply throwing more good money after bad. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Assemblywoman Carlton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of AB 109, Order of Business 15.
Order of Business 15.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, serving on the Interim Education Committee was a real eye-opener for me. I had not ever had the privilege of serving on education before. But with all the changes that were going on, I thank you for appointing me to that committee. We learned a lot about charter schools at that time. Currently, they only have to have 70% of their folks actually to be licensed teachers, and we found that to be too low. We would see that number be much higher. The bill that came out of the Interim Education Committee was 100%. And I was really hoping for 95 because I knew there was going to be negotiation. But here we are at 80%. It's a step forward. There's a saying in this building, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. This is a significant step forward. Doesn't every child in the state deserve a licensed teacher? We know it doesn't always work for certain particular individual curricula like specialty math or music, things along that line. But let's think about it. Doesn't every child deserve a licensed teacher in this state that we know is qualified to stand in a room with our children? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Any further remarks? There being none, the Chief Clerk will open the roll. Anyone wishing to change their vote? There are 31 ayes, 9 nays, 2 absent excused. To be obviously see the Constitutional majority. Declare pass and order transmitted to the Senate.
Assembly Bill 154, introduced by Assemblyman Roberts et al., Senator Hammond. An act relating to public utilities, authorizing public utilities to provide certain notice to customers electronically, revising certain requirements governing the quarterly rate of adjustment provided by a public utility, and providing other matters properly relating thereto. The people's state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 2, end of Section 2, end of bill.
Any members to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Remarks, Assemblyman Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Assembly Bill 154 authorizes a public utility to provide to its customers by electronic transmission certain notices, including notices of quarterly rate adjustments. A notice of quarterly rate adjustment must be printed on a separate piece of paper if included with a customer's regular mailed monthly bill or identified as a quarterly rate adjustment in the subject line of electronic transmission. Thank you.
Any further remarks? There being none, the Chief Clerk will open the roll. Anyone wishing to change their vote? There are 40 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent excused. To be allowed to see the Constitutional majority. Declare pass or transmitted to the Senate.
Assembly Bill 178, introduced by Assemblywoman Hardy et al., Senators Hardy et al., an act relating to prescription drugs, requiring an insured to take certain actions relating to the acquisition of prescription drugs for an insured who resides in an area for which a declared disaster or state of emergency is in effect, authorizing a pharmacist to dispense a prescription drug to a patient who resides in such an area in an amount greater than is authorized by the prescribing practitioner under certain conditions, and providing other matters properly relating thereto. The people's state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 23, end of Section 23, end of bill.
Any members to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Remarks, Assemblywoman Hardy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Assembly Bill 178 requires insurers, including Medicaid, the Public Employees Benefits Program, and local governments that provide coverage for their employees to, 1, waive any restrictions on the time period within which a prescription may be refilled for an insured who resides in the area to which a state of emergency or declaration of disaster applies if the insured requests the refill within a certain time. And 2, authorize payment for a supply of a covered prescription drug for up to 30 days for any insured who requests a refill under those conditions. The measure allows a pharmacist to fill or refill a prescription in an amount that is greater than the amount authorized by the prescribing practitioner, but does not exceed a 30-day supply of the drug if the drug is not a controlled substance listed in Schedule 2 and the patient resides in an area where a state of emergency or declared disaster applies. Order of Business 15.
Order of Business 15.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This was a situation that actually happened with me last year with my mom when she needed some of her medications refilled. So I wanted to bring this legislation forward since I had this happen personally. And passing this legislation would give all Nevadans that depend on their medications the peace of mind and assurance that they can have those prescriptions if we are ever once again in a state as we are now. So I urge you to vote yes on Assembly Bill 178. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further remarks? There being none, Chief Clerk will open the room. Anyone wishing to change their vote? There are 40 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent excused. Bill having received the Constitution majority, declare passed. Order transmitted to Senate.
Assembly Bill 210, introduced by Assemblyman Yeager, an act relating to chiropractic, requiring a business entity that provides chiropractic services to register with the Chiropractic Physicians Board of Nevada, establishing certain duties of a registrant, revising terminology used to refer to a person who provides chiropractic services, revising certain qualifications of an applicant for a license to engage in the practice of chiropractic, authorizing a chiropractic physician to recommend, dispense, or administer certain drugs and devices, creating a privilege for confidential communication between a patient and a chiropractic physician, providing penalty, and providing other matters properly laid thereto. The people of the state of Nevada represented in Senate and Assembly to enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1. Section 23, end of Section 23, end of bill.
Any members to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Remarks, Assemblyman Yeager.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Assembly Bill 210 provides for the registration and regulation of certain business entities that provide chiropractic services. Such business entities must register with the Chiropractic Physicians Board of Nevada. The measure specifies the duties of such registered entities. The measure also makes various changes to the practice of chiropractic, including changing the title of a person who provides chiropractic services to chiropractic physician, and the title of a person assisting a chiropractic physician to chiropractic assistant. It also revises certain educational qualifications of an applicant for a chiropractic license.
Any further remarks? There being none, Chief Clerk will open the room. Anyone wishing to change their vote? There are 34 ayes, 6 nays, 2 absent excused. Bill having received the Constitution majority, declare passed, and order transmitted to Senate.
Assembly Bill 320, introduced by Assemblyman Levitt, Senator Hardy. An act relating to off-highway vehicles, revising provisions governing the operation of certain large all-terrain vehicles on certain streets and highways, and providing other matters properly laid thereto. The people of the state of Nevada represented in Senate and Assembly do enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1. Section 2, end of Section 2, end of bill.
Are any members to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Remarks, Assemblyman Levitt.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Assembly Bill 320 authorizes the operation of large all-terrain vehicles, ATVs, on streets within a city or township whose population is less than 25,000. If the large ATV has the equipment required for the operation on a highway, a large ATV is registered with the Department of Motor Vehicles as a motor vehicle intended for operation. The governing body of the city, county, or township having jurisdiction over street has not prohibited the operation of large ATVs on any portion of the highway. The bill revises the definition of large all-terrain vehicle to mean ATV that has non-straddle seats, including seat capacity for at least 2 people, and adds main county roads to the list of designated highways on which a person may operate a large ATV.
Any further remarks? Oh, sorry.
Sorry. This bill becomes effective October 1, 2021.
Any further remarks? There being none, Chief Clerk will open the room. Anyone wishing to change their vote? There are 40 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent excused. Bill having received the Constitution majority, declare passed, and order transmitted to Senate.
Assembly Bill 342, introduced by the Committee on Judiciary, an act relating to offenders, revising the frequency of the review of standards adopted by the State Board of Parole Commissioners relating to the granting and revocation of parole, revising provisions relating to the program of lifetime supervision of sex offenders, and providing other matters properly laid thereto. The people of the state of Nevada represented in Senate and Assembly do enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1. Section 4, end of Section 4, end of bill.
Any members to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Remarks, Assemblyman Yeager.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Assembly Bill 342 provides that the State Board of Parole Commissioners will only be responsible for establishing a program of lifetime supervision and establishing the conditions of such a program for a sex offender who is sentenced before July 1, 2021. All current duties and responsibilities related to lifetime supervision of sex offenders sentenced on or after that date are transferred from the board to the sentencing court. The measure also revises the frequency of the review of the board standards by providing that the standards must be reviewed at least once every 5 years.
Any further remarks? There being none, Chief Clerk will open the roll. Anyone wishing to change their vote? There are 26 ayes, 14 nays, 2 absent, excused. Bill having received the constitutional majority, declare passed. Order transmitted to the Senate.
Assembly Bill 398, introduced by the Committee on Commerce and Labor, an act relating to sales of residential property, providing that a seller's agent shall not complete a disclosure form regarding the residential property, providing that a seller's agent is not liable to the purchaser under certain circumstances, and providing other matters properly laid thereto. The people of the state of Nevada represented in Senate and Assembly to enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 2, end of Section 2, end of bill.
Any amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Remarks, Assemblywoman Hodeggy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Assembly Bill 398 prohibits a seller's agent from completing a disclosure form on behalf of the seller of a residential property. A seller's agent is not liable to the purchaser if 1, the seller is aware of a defect and fails to disclose the defect to the purchaser on the disclosure form, or 2, the seller discovers a new defect in the residential property that was not identified on the completed disclosure form, or discovers that the defect identified on the completed disclosure form has become worse.
Any further remarks? There being none, Chief Clerk will open the roll. Anyone wishing to change their vote? There are 40 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent, excused. The bill having received the constitutional majority, declare passed. Order transmitted to the Senate.
Assembly Bill 143, introduced by Assemblywomen Krasner et al., Senators Spearman and Settlemyre, an act relating to human trafficking, requiring the Administrator of the Division of Child and Family Services of the Department of Health and Human Services to perform certain duties relating to victims of human trafficking and providing other matters properly laid thereto. The people of the state of Nevada represented in Senate and Assembly to enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 3, end of Section 3, end of bill.
Any amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
Amendment 456, proposed by Assemblywoman Krasner.
Assemblywoman Krasner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Assembly Bill 143 requires the Administrator of the Division of...
I'm sorry, Assemblywoman, do you have a statement about an amendment or a motion to adopt?
Mr. Speaker?
Okay, Assemblyman Flores.
My apologies, Mr. Speaker, for the confusion. Members, you'll notice that on your desk you have amendment number 456 to Assembly Bill 143. I want to make sure everybody sees that. And Mr. Speaker, I wanted to move for the adoption of amendment number 456 to Assembly Bill 143.
Assemblyman Flores has moved that the Assembly adopt amendment 456 to Assembly Bill 143. Remarks?
Mr. Speaker, it just makes a minor change, changing a statewide coalition to the State of Nevada Human Trafficking Coalition, and that is it, Mr. Speaker.
Any further remarks? All those in favor of the Assembly adopting Amendment 456 to Assembly Bill 143, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Amendments adopted. Any further amendments to the bill?
There are none.
The bill's ordered general file. We go to order business 13, unfinished business of the preceding day. There being no objection, the Speaker and Chief Clerk will sign Assembly Bill 62. We'll go to order business 15.
Mr. Speaker, actually, if we could go back to order business 13.
Unfinished business, order business 13.
I'm sorry, if we could go back to business 12.
What do you want to do?
If we could take the vote on Assembly Bill 143. One minute recess.
1 minute recess. All right, the Assembly will come back to order. We'll go back to order of business, I believe 15. Did Assemblywoman Carlton have an OB 15?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, under order of business 15, there's a birthday in the house, and you won't see me do this often. This is a Cubs cap, and we have a birthday. Fiscal staff Brody Leiser here today. I would like you all to give him a warm round of applause for all the work that they've done. And happy birthday, Mr. Leiser. And I will not wear this cap again.
Assemblywoman, do you have to burn the hat now?
I borrowed it from a certain senator at the other end of the building that flies the W on a regular basis, so.
Got it. Back to order, business 15. Assemblywoman Titus.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday, hopefully everybody in this body was delivered some information from me regarding today. Today is Healthcare Decisions Day. This day was passed last session in 2019 by bipartisan full support in both houses. This day is important to provide clear, concise, and consistent information on healthcare decisions, making it public that healthcare providers and facilities throughout the widespread availability and dissemination of free, simple, uniform tools to guide this process. That is what was delivered to all of you yesterday in that bright fuchsia paper. It's another way to encourage and publicize the importance of completing advanced directives. According to the Conservation Project's National Survey in 2018, 92% of Americans say it is important to discuss their wishes regarding end-of-life care. However, only 32% have ever had that conversation. When asked, 95% of Americans say they would be willing to talk about the wishes, and 53% even say they would be relieved to discuss it. Healthcare Decisions Day today helps initiate those conversations. By making this designation, we hope to bring awareness to these important issues and help individuals, families, providers, and communities to have these difficult but very needed conversations so that the end of life can be provided with dignity and respect for the patient's wishes. One other point I want to point out is, why was April 16th designated Healthcare Decisions Day? Well, as you know, yesterday was April 15th. It is tax day yesterday, or was tax day. So the only two guarantees we have are taxes and death. And so April 16th was chosen for this day. So if I might now, we have a little presentation that, if it's okay with the speaker, we will now share. Mr. Speaker, if I might, while they're waiting to get that up, I just want to encourage everybody to please read that information I brought to you. If you have any further questions on it, I would be happy to have a discussion, take it home to family members, have that in very, very important discussions. Thank you.
I was there within 6 hours. It was absolutely clear that he wouldn't want the respirator continued.
She went on hospice, and when she passed away, she was in my wife's arms. Couldn't have been a better way to go.
I think the difference between a good death and a hard death is having had the conversation.
You can't write an advance directive that covers every eventuality, but you can tell people what matters to you.
Religion, race, ethnicity, class as well can influence what makes sense for patients.
I think initiating the conversation with a loved one is as simple as diving right in and saying, we will not be living right now as we always will be. I want to make sure I do well by you, and I need to know what's important to you.
I used to tell my wife when I was 30 that as long as I had a smile on my face, do everything you have to do to keep me going. Now I sort of think of the impact that might have on my kids and my wife.
For many people, it is quality of life versus quantity of life. Some people have very specific ideas about how they want to die, whether they want to be in their own home, whether they want the comfort of being in a hospital.
To put up with having a breathing tube in an ICU for a couple days, you're actually thinking out loud together about what makes life really, really good. As long as I can have that, it's really worth it to me.
For many people, being at home is so comforting, but taking care of someone who's dying requires physical strength, it requires financial resources.
And by the way, it isn't a one-time conversation. You can have it again and again over time.
We're all mortal. What do we want our life to be like right up to the very end?
If you, as a loved one, could answer that question about your mother, father, spouse, partner, child, then it's so much easier to put the medical pieces together.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Not to leave everybody on a little bit of a gloom, have a beautiful weekend, and thank you for hearing the message.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. Move back on Order Business 15, Assemblyman Hafen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Order Business 15.
Order Business 15.
Tomorrow is my grandfather's 89th birthday, and first and foremost would like to thank the Speaker for preparing a proclamation with me. For the sake of time, I won't read the entire proclamation into the record because I know it's Friday, but I did want to honor my grandfather on his birthday. Tim Hafen was one of the founders of Pahrump, Nevada. He was the oldest of 4 boys, raised in Mesquite on a dairy farm, and at the age of 19, he decided he never wanted to milk another cow in his life. And so he moved to Pahrump with a trailer that had no indoor plumbing, an Army surplus generator that he prayed would work through the summer. He conquered every roadblock thrown at his way, and was one of the driving forces in Pahrump that helped it grow and flourish. Nevada is a better place because of him. He wanted to continue to see its success, and so in 1966, he ran for the Nevada State Assembly. He served 4 terms and was actually Speaker Pro Tem in 1971. I apologize to our current Speaker Pro Tem, but he is my favorite Speaker Pro Tem. Therefore be it proclaimed that we deem it an honor and a privilege to offer sincere congratulations and best wishes to Tim Hafen on the occasion of his 89th birthday, and be it further proclaimed that Tim Hafen is celebrated as an inspiration to all Nevadans who look up to him as a symbol of unbreakable determination and strength. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Assemblywoman Gorlow.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Apparently today is a very special day because we have another birthday, our colleague from District 18. So to help celebrate, we do have cupcakes in Leadership Office. So please grab a cupcake on your way out and join me in wishing her a very happy birthday.
Assemblywoman Hardy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today is actually a very special and happy day for me. It is my anniversary, and we'll just say it's more than 25 years. So even though he's not watching, I want to wish my husband a very happy anniversary. He is the friendliest, happiest guy you'd ever meet. He works so hard, always with a smile, never complaining. He works his own job. While I'm up here, buys the groceries, takes care of the dog, checks off all of the items I leave him on my list to get done during the week. And I just feel so blessed and lucky that he's my companion, and for all that he does for our family and for me, that allows me to do what I do and to be here and to be able to serve with all of you. So happy anniversary, Damon. Thank you.
Assemblywoman Torres.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On this day in 1971, the famous Tejana singer Selena Quintanilla Perez was born. Her popular Tejana music continues to impact pop culture across the globe today. So with that, I end with Bidi Bidi Bum Bum.
Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Seeing no other business before us, I move that the Assembly stand adjourned until Monday, April 19th at the hour of 11:30 a.m.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We are adjourned.